So if you can tell us a bit about your path, about what you are doing, what projects you've been involved in, just so we get a feel of what you are involved in.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the invitation. So I have a background in pure mathematics. I did my PhD and my master in Paris, master at École Polytechnique. Then I was a PhD at UPMC, so University Pierre and Marie Curie. And then I was a research fellow at the University of Oxford and a lecturer at Brasenose College as well for 2 years. And basically after that, I decided that I want to switch from academia to business and go from pure mathematics into machine learning / artificial intelligence. And that was quite a ride so far. So basically, after leaving academia, I was doing a bunch of consulting gigs on the side, basically with different companies, both for enterprises and smaller companies, figuring out how they can approach different mathematical problems, different machine learning problems, and so on. And at some point, I decided that I want to get also more into the startup space and start something on my own. And that was the time when one of my friends approached me with the idea for what became Bring.ai. And that was, if you know Glovo or Postmates, that was this type of a service where you can, the last mile delivery service, where you can order something on your phone and basically have it delivered to you within 60 or 90 minutes in Warsaw. So I was working primarily in Warsaw at first. And the idea was that we do everything that Uber does not. So we don't do people and food, but we can deliver for you a package or buy for you something at the shop and bring that to you. So that was my first startup. Unfortunately, that failed to different, well, mostly due to lack of funds for marketing, because those type of Uber-like businesses tend to be very capital intensive. We're entirely bootstrapped, put our own money in the startup, and basically, well, the growth was pretty nice, but we didn't manage to secure the funds in time to actually keep on going. Then the second startup was also in the logistics space, but from the other direction, more on the macro scale. With another colleague of mine, we started a company called Bohr Technology, where we used quantum computing for different optimization problems, especially in the logistics and transportation. And it was pretty nice because we went through the accelerator in Toronto, in Canada, a creative destruction lab. That was, at the time at least, the only quantum accelerator in the world. So that's why Canada. We spent a couple of months there, basically building the company, having our team also between Warsaw and Toronto as well. Yeah, and that was super technical, also from the physics standpoint, which wasn't definitely my area of expertise. That failed, unfortunately, to being, first of all, too early in the market, and then secondly, due to personal reasons and strategical reasons, deciding on where to go next. We just have different ideas with my co-founder where the company should be going, and in the end decided to not continue that. Basically, after that, I had this moment of thinking through what I want to do next, and I used to write a lot, and I always was writing. So I published in total like 5 books, novels, but also technical books. And basically my idea was that, okay, I want to have something which would help me write much faster and much better and be more effective at that. And that's how Contentyze started. So I started using some of the algorithms for my own purpose. Basically, that was the end of 2019. And then in January 2020, I was pretty sure that I want to make it into the platform. I talked with one of my colleagues who helped me with building the whole backend for that and front end. And we made that into the platform, and then I started hiring some more people to get on going with that. The first version appeared in June 2020, and since then we basically had like 10% weekly growth from week to week. So we're right now at around 3,500 users, and they're still growing pretty fast. So what we're doing, like what I want to do in the end is basically Canva for writing, if you think about it. So Canva is, if you're into at least graphical design, or if you have done any presentations which are a little bit more sophisticated, then probably Canva is the best tool to do that. It's super simple to use for all these presentations. And I'm thinking about doing exactly something similar, but from the for text writing. So whenever you want to write something, be that an essay, a dissertation, or some kind of marketing content, there should be like an easy way to have basically a dashboard, a text editor, which would help you take all the sources together, suggest you maybe how you can improve upon your grammar, write something for you as well from the sources you feed into that, and all the other stuff that typically go into. So you could probably pick and choose between templates of having like an essay, dissertation, blog post, social media post, and so on. So that's the goal. That's basically what we're working towards. And it was pretty exciting because there were like a lot of different developments along the time I've been working on the subject. Probably the most hyped one recently was the introduction of GPT-3 by OpenAI. And yeah, it's been even more crazy since then. So because of the interest that generated in the whole space. So what we're doing ourselves, we have a bunch of custom models. I don't want to get too technical, but there are different transformer models that we're using. I have also access to GPT-3, but actually I'm not using that currently due to different restrictions GPT-3 has. And actually to the guidelines by OpenAI, no one can actually use GPT-3 for like open-ended generation of text without their explicit consent each time. So the goal right now is to actually have more customization into the models and start building something both on top of open source things and on top of whatever we can find works best in the cases we usually consider, which is right now mostly in a marketing space, because especially content marketers, bloggers, different freelancers are the primary target audience for us right now. Yeah, so that's it when it comes to like the general description of what I'm doing, where I am with the company and my previous projects. Maybe I should also mention that, well, I have this consulting boutique kind of shop, ulam.ai, which was always running on the side. And thanks to that, I've been also involved with various AI projects at different companies, be that like large enterprises, small startups, medium-sized companies, and so on. So I've been helping with building like data science teams or thinking about how to implement various automations or optimizations within products.
All right, that's lovely. Yeah, so you started talking about
Okay, I think we must we might have lost Igor.
Yeah.
Let me take over for a little while, and perhaps Igor has some detailed question also about your story. I will consider some of the questions which may relate to us students, perhaps still at university. So yeah, the first one might be what have you used in your startup work from the skills you learned at university? Because of course pure mathematics is a good basis for ML and going deeper into the field. But yeah, there are also some skills that you just learn going out there to the business world. So what do you think? Have you learned and used from university, and what did you need to acquire on your new path?
Yeah, so I think from my university years, the only thing I keep on using is general curiosity and this openness to learn more and being patient in learning. Probably that's it, because when it comes to like all the things that I learned about the business, I learned doing the business. And there are like many things which are very business specific that you probably can't learn in school, or you probably can hear about them, but then you don't realize that it's that thing unless you actually experience that in real life. So not much, actually. I don't think university is good for learning in general, even though I have this the whole education. So I had a lot of fun at the university and doing my PhD and so on. But to be honest, that was like more as having fun rather than being ready to run a company in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but perhaps that's from where some successful entrepreneurs finish as dropouts. They just continue.
Yeah, definitely.
With their new work. When it comes to learning, was there someone specific when it comes to mentors and advisors that guided you in your early years doing business? Because sometimes there's just this big person which helps you enter this entrepreneurship world.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have a mentor. I still don't. Basically, I'm on my own, and this is probably something due to my character and also being trained as a mathematician, and especially pure mathematicians are on their own, and I feel really good on my own. Though, of course, right now it's different because I'm super open to speak with different people and get their knowledge from various sources, and especially, I don't know, like right now I want to learn more about front end and things like React and different technologies that you can use to design. I've never did that. It's super important if you want to design a really awesome product. So I'm basically talking with like mid and senior React developers or like designers to guide me through the process, to understand as much as possible. But I don't have like a single mentor who could lead me through different business things. Although I have like senior business people who could advise me on some aspects of running a business. So especially I have a couple of people from the venture capital world who can advise me on like building the fundamentals of the company when it comes to business, but still they won't help me with building the product. They won't help me with the connection to the clients most of the times. So rather than having like one mentor, like these mentor figures, I have like many different people that I take knowledge from.
Yeah, of course. So maybe let's just ask a question which is in the chat right now from Piotr. So do you yourself have mentees right now, and do you consider this sort of activities as of today?
So I had students, meaning master students in computer science. I never had any kind of business mentorship. But generally, I'm open to that. Like, especially if there's like a good case. I mean, okay, maybe that's not true. I mean, I had it wasn't just anything regular, but I had like basically younger colleagues approaching me, asking about particular things that I went through, especially this change of jumping from academia to business, or like living your student life and going into business. That's such a huge step. Then many people are looking for answers, especially in that direction. So I'm definitely happy to answer questions, and if that's like helping anyone, that can also be extended to like a longer collaboration as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So let me just perhaps ask one more question when it comes to the wider business, and then because Igor is sort of full connection, we might continue more about this sort of AI and then creativity. But this one last question from me on this topic is there are some businesses which you kicked off, and from various reasons after a year or this sort of time they didn't continue on this longer journey, and there are some that you are just still engaging with and moving further. There is this sort of an important transition process where you kind of leave the garage, as we might say, and it's not anymore the project with a couple of your friends with whom you code, and you have a lot of fun, but you need to scale this up, and it's often very, very challenging. So from your experiences and both those successful and those where the business didn't continue on growing, So what would be the best advice for this sort of a period for the young entrepreneurs to succeed in this scaling process?
Yeah, to be honest, it's super hard because in general it depends on what you're doing. But probably it comes down to, if I were to like just highlight a couple of things, it comes down to being honest with yourself about the metrics you're measuring. So especially if you're going from like the super MVP stage to scaling a business, growing that, real users, paying customers, and so on, then the real question is, what are the measures you're taking, and whether the measures you're taking are the vanity metrics, or are they like the real metrics which makes you show you the health of the business. So for example, to show you the vanity metrics that I have, like the number of users that I have in Contentyze, so there's like 3,500 users right now, it's actually the vanity metric. This is not like, it's great, but it's only, in some extent, it's only for my own vanity that people are registering for Contentyze because they're curious. The real metric is how many paying users are there and how many people are active and using Contentyze regularly each week. So that's like the true metric. And there are many things like that, I think, in this growing stage, going from the fun to like the real business, is that you keep on being illusioned by your own metrics that you think are important, but which are not in the end. And I think it's only natural, because we as humans, especially after like going out of university where you are graded, where everything is like well determined, because like you have to give this essay, or you have to have this dissertation, or I don't know, like there are different things that you measure at the university, and from the student's perspective, thanks to that, you're doing well or not. In a business, on the business side, well, in the end, you want to measure like how much money you're making, right? This is probably the only like objective metric. But in order to get there, that can take, for example, with many startups, many years. So in the meantime, there must be other metrics that are getting you to this right direction. And the biggest question, the hardest thing is whether you're measuring the right things, and whether things you're measuring really putting you into that good direction in the end.
Mm-hmm. And in case of growing larger and larger technical teams, what importance do you think is of employing this sort of technical leads who are more of sort of Jira managers, and they are just managing work, not indeed coding? How important such people are, in your opinion?
So to be honest, I've never actually had or worked with or been in a position where the project manager would not code like at all. Like most of the people that are project managers and like Jira managers, but maybe that depends on the company as well. But those people were coming from the computer science background, so at least they could understand the code and knew a little bit what was going on. So from my perspective, for example, myself, I'm feeling much better with like looking at the Python code for different machine learning models, and I can make sense of that pretty quickly. But even though like I'm trying to be at the position where even if you show me something, I don't know, like in TypeScript or like in React or like some other technology that is being currently used on front or back end, I can still make sense out of that, because I think it's super important to actually understand at least the direction that the things are going to, and really have the meaningful conversation with people that know much more than you, but still they need to be guided because they don't have the full picture of the project.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, having perhaps sort of full stack knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely. That's like this is like the full stack management, basically.
Yeah. So let's just consider one question from the chat before coming back to again this sort of creativity questions. So there is quite a good question about when did you start learning to code? That happens in different periods of life for different IT guys? When was it in your case?
So I started pretty early, because probably when I was 6 or 7, because back then I was like fascinated with video games, and of course I wanted to play, I wanted to create my own. But then it went away when I was basically in high school. I turned back to just doing pure mathematics. And even though I started at the University of Warsaw, both doing YOTSIM, which means both mathematics and computer science at the same time, I decided then that I just hate computer science and I never want to code in my life. So it went through for the next couple of years, and then being, I think, 26 or 7, I got back to coding quite a lot. And now I love it. So, but it's still like, it's also because what I was coding, being a student, from my perspective, was super boring. And those were like technical things, like, I don't know, like understanding the kernel of like some operating system, or like things which I didn't see any practical application wherever. And when I came back to programming and doing that everything in Python, it was super clear. The whole structure for programming was very clear for me. And also because I had this mathematical background, doing machine learning in Python was also like a very clear way to putting your models into actual code and seeing what's going on.
Yeah. Sometimes, they ask us to write code on paper.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Experience. So perhaps let's now go back to this sort of area which also specify in, and ask a couple of just interesting questions about what AI may be covering in the future and what not. So do you expect that AI is going to be covering perhaps most of the news for us in the near future, and when it might be?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, probably all of you have already read some news generated by AI without even knowing that it's generated by AI, because especially in English spoken countries, in the US and the UK, there are many news on sports and stock markets that are being, and weather as well, being generated by AI, or rather some very, well, it's not even, I wouldn't call it AI perhaps, because it's more about a little bit smarter scripts that are being run. So for example, you can have a live coverage of a football match, or weather forecast for the next 2 weeks. And that's because it's super repetitive, then actually it's also easy to run a bot that will take for example, the input from the match and just describe everything in the natural language. So those things are already happening. I think you can Google something called United Robots. I can write it on the chat. I think United Robots is the company operating out of Sweden, and they specialize in that. So I think that, for example, in Sweden, most of the news on sports in major newspapers are being written by robots currently. And it's super interesting because thanks to that, they managed to cover also like very small leagues and like very niche leagues, niche teams, niche players. And thanks to that, the interest in the sport, the interest in the football is booming in Sweden.
Yeah, of course, there are some volumes of text that a person might not cover. But also in the, for example, audit business, more and more NLP specialists being employed to automatize this sort of a process. So perhaps let's reflect about whether AI is then gonna take over the majority of these tasks. Is it gonna be a large threat for the job market? There are various reports available. Some people predict it's gonna increase the number of jobs on the market out there, but they are just gonna be in those more and more advanced roles. But some worry it's a threat for more people just staying out of the out of the roles. What is your stance on that?
Well, first of all, I think there's like unlimited number of jobs. So from my perspective, because you can always find something to do and like invent a job for you which will pay you money. So the basic example is basically flipping stuff and like, you know, buying cheaper, selling higher, for example, I don't know, collectibles or something like that, going on garage sales. So from my perspective, like all those reports about there will be less jobs because of AI are nonsense. But on the other hand, of course, they make sense for very particular profiles or like very particular tasks that you were doing. So definitely, especially in like when we're talking about journalism, there are usually junior staff that tended to like cover local sport events, and those people won't be needed anymore. Those kind of roles won't be needed anymore because those people will be always needed, and there might be some roles, but they will be different. So I think what AI will do in general, especially related to text, is that many of the jobs in the market that require just mindlessly going through different documents and putting together different reports, that hopefully will go away. And hopefully, because I think it will be the best for everyone, because those jobs are really, I mean, they're super hard in the sense like they're mentally taxing on you because you just keep on doing the work that you don't believe in, and it's something that a robot could do right now. Yeah, so my perspective is I'm super optimistic that thanks to AI and different developments, especially in like natural language processing, generation, understanding, we'll be able to do more creative things than previously, and all these boring repetitive things will be taken care of by robots.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a question of whether the same amount of jobs, the same amount of new jobs are going to appear as is the number of those that are not for people anymore. Let's perhaps now ask about the artificial general intelligence, which is, as you say, your sort of ultimate goal to build. Mm-hmm. It sounds very, very exciting, but of course challenging. Could you just elaborate a bit on that topic, and in particular, what's your plan for just teaching?
Yeah, sure.
AGI to think abstractly, because that's perhaps the most difficult challenge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can give you, so let me maybe just cover AGI in general, and then I give you like the very practical and down-to-earth approach to what I'm thinking about it. Because generally, for the people that don't know, there's this distinction between artificial narrow intelligence and artificial general intelligence. And basically, artificial narrow intelligence is all those algorithms that are able to solve very particular tasks or do very particular things, like I don't know, like that can be optimization of different routes, or maybe detection of cats on photos, or generating text, and so on. So those are different examples of very narrow tasks, and it's super hard to transfer that knowledge to other domains. And there's the whole domain called transfer learning, which is trying to do that. And the amazing feature in humans is that we all can do transfer learning, in the sense that whatever we learn, we actually can put that in a context and maybe use that knowledge to some extent in other places. Like if I were to learn Chinese, then maybe this knowledge of Chinese would help my mathematics, because I suddenly learned the plethora of new signs, and so on. Like it's super hard to determine what's the outcome of learning one domain when it comes to humans. The concept of artificial general intelligence is that we are actually able to create this machine which is all-encompassing, and it is able to take all the knowledge and put out something meaningful, as would the real person do. So it will be able to do all the cognitive, all the creative stuff that the person would do, not necessarily as well as the master of a given art, but at least be able to be capable of doing something. And there will be some progress also with time. Yeah, so that's super abstract. My proxy is basically, I would like to have an avatar of myself. This is like an MVP version of artificial general intelligence. My MVP for AGI is basically having an avatar for myself who does exactly what I do when it comes to operating on the computer. So for example, this chat we're having right now would be done entirely by my AI avatar, and you would just hear, you would have a deep fake me talking to you with my own voice, but myself, I would be watching something on Netflix or being out with friends or something like that. So that's the goal, and that's my MVP for AGI.
Mm-hmm. And in what sort of time scale do you hope to achieve that?
Yeah, so for this MVP version, I think like 10 years is pretty manageable. For the full version, to be honest, like there's this prediction by Ray Kurzweil of 2045. Maybe that will happen. I mean, because that might be super scary, because when you have machines at the level of humans, then suddenly we won't be the most intelligent species on Earth because of the progress and because of all the learning. But yeah, I'm not entirely, I'm neutral about the whole thing, whether that will happen or not. I'm definitely sure that this proxy version of what I just mentioned is like having this AI avatars for example, that I can create for myself. That will definitely happen because it's all about just taking all together the different systems that are already out there, from deepfakes to generating text, to text understanding and processing, to different RPAs, robotic process automation systems, and so on. So it would still require enormous computing power, which is super hard to do right now. But in 10 years, that should change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. You also just featured that there are some dangers associated with, of course, new developments in AI widely. So yeah, for example, there was this inventor of the YOLO net for image recognition. It was, as I remember, version 4. Where the guy decided to resign because of the kind of new dangers that he found in the software he develops, because it was able to very accurately detect multiple objects on images, and perhaps might have been used to track down people, like there are some plans to do in China. So how can we just protect ourselves from our new inventions, new developments, to not to be used in this sort of evil for evil purposes?
Yeah, that's a great question, and to be honest, I don't have a good answer to that, even though this is something I think quite often about, because first of all, I think about that quite often because especially in this domain of like text generation, OpenAI has its own policies regarding that, and there are like many other companies like Google also having different policies. The reason for that being you can use those kind of techniques to generate misinformation, fake news, spam on like super large scale, and you want to avoid that. So that's the reason why these different policies are indeed necessary to have. I don't have a good answer because I think that with new technologies, there are potential new risks, and there will be like hackers or like different groups which want to do bad, basically trying to use that technology for their own means. But on the other hand, you have the good guys who are trying to protect everyone else. So when it comes to like your personal actions, I'm not sure what you can do, especially with those large scale systems, apart from being just careful and verifying where the information is coming from, what kind of information you're giving away to different companies. So something which we should be doing probably since like 10 years, but I think people are much more aware right now that we should be doing that, especially with the recent I think either Google or Facebook is being sued over different issues, and very often Congress is having either Mark Zuckerberg or guys from Google answering different questions. And probably this is the way we'll be going forward, meaning all those different companies that taking our private information and using that for different marketing purposes or monetizing our personas online will have to have some kind of accountability for what they're doing in order to better understand where are we giving our information so well. So that's probably the most important thing here. When it comes to deepfakes and like generated text and stuff like that, well, it all depends on you, and you probably should be just able to verify the sources and make sure that whatever you're reading or watching is coming from the source you have verified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might have spot a bit of a change in the policies of Facebook, Twitter in the recent presidential race in the US. So they started highlighting this sort of posts by Donald Trump, for example, which were a bit of fake, and just issuing some clarified information about what the presidential race is about and how the results are decided. So of course they realized they need to change their policy as well. So perhaps let's go back again to text generation and maybe quite a basic question again about it. So how advanced is it now for us to be able to distinguish the messages generated by AI and those which are still being written by humans? Because as you've covered before, in various services like this sports live this sort of relation,
live coverage of football.
The AI written text is present, but how are we able to distinguish them in this sort of a different environment?
Yeah, so it all depends on the context, and probably in some contexts you won't be able to recognize that, in other you will. So especially in like weather forecasts, like stock exchange news or football commentary, you won't be able to recognize generated text because you are already accustomed to that specific language in those domains. Whereas in texts which are much more open-ended, more on the philosophical side, I don't know, like sociological issues discussion or stuff like that, those algorithms are still not good enough to give you, without any edits, a perfect text. So even if you've seen, like, there were a couple of articles posted by The Guardian, generated entirely by GPT-3, and a couple of different blog posts which are also super popular. Those things were not the first things generated. Like, they were cherry picked to have the best outcome, and there were probably some kind of edits also on the text to make to cut at least some parts of the text and make it look better, because it's not like the machine understands the grammar and the language, but it doesn't understand the actual text. And the reason for that is also those kind of big models like GPT-3, or recently the biggest model actually was released last week by Google. This like a switch transformer, so the iteration with transformer technology, but in a way that the parallel computation is possible. They managed to train a model which is 9 times bigger than GPT-3. But even this kind of model doesn't understand what the context, and doesn't understand the text in the sense that we mean when we say that someone understands something. They purely understand how the words go one by another. And those models are generally trained to predict the next word. So the task that GPT-3 was given when it was being trained is basically, here's the prompt and give me the next word, and then give me the next word and the next word. And thanks to that, you can generate the whole text. But the basic task is just generate the next word, given the prompt, given the input from the human or from other source. So I think that also touches upon AGI, and that what's missing in AGI is that logical reasoning, so something very fundamental in mathematics, is still not there. We cannot really make like, okay, maybe up to some things, but we cannot make the machines make logical steps and think on their own, meaning have this logical reasoning just as we have in mathematics when we have lemmas, theorems, proofs, and all this stuff based on logical principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see we have a question coming back to the business aspect. that's also one that I might have a couple of questions left in. But let's just pose a question from George for others. So what AI technologies do you need most from your from the candidates on the job market? Is it about the in-depth mathematical knowledge, or general machine learning, knowledge of a particular stack? Is it just a certain area in which they specialize, like image recognition or NLP, or just this sort of in-depth predictive analysis? Perhaps there are some soft skills which you would consider as the most beneficial in a good data scientist, machine learning engineer, or later the sort of a leader?
Yeah, sure. So, well, it really depends on what the role you're applying for. When it comes to Contentyze, well, I have very simple tasks that I give my candidates, because the basic skill I need right now is purely implementational machine learning. So I give them one of the models, like either GPT-2 or a T5, and I tell them to implement that and tell me what they need. So actually they will need to have at least be able to tell me that they need this kind of virtual machine on AWS or Azure, or they need that, and then and that's probably like the basic step. So from my perspective, the thing I need the most is this learning, the learning skill, actually. So you're open to learn, you're not scared of reading research papers and implementing whatever code you find somewhere, and then iterating on that. And this is super important, because I think this is the most important skill in the end, because the natural state for computer scientists or mathematicians is that you don't understand something. There's never a state when you feel that you understand everything. So you need to be humble enough to go back to the research papers or to the books and try to do it by yourself, and then come back and implement it again and again unless you understand something and make it better. Mm-hmm. So from my perspective, considering this question from George, definitely knowledge on the natural language processing side is super important, but if that's not given, then at least the general framework for deploying machine learning models on the cloud is something that I'm looking for, because that's the basic thing. Less of the mathematical knowledge, actually, because to be honest, I don't think I'm using my mathematics in any way, and machine learning is super easy when it comes to mathematics. I mean, it's not, it's linear algebra plus a little bit of analysis.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to know AWS, because otherwise your company might receive a receipt for $100,000 because you've used too much of the GPU.
Yeah, that's very important when you deal with large models.
So that might be of importance as well. But clearly then there are certain differences between academia and going on to build on your business in an AI field. So just to reiterate on that, because we probably have quite a lot of people on the call who are still deciding on whether to go in the one direction or the other. What to look for in themselves to make the best choice in this situation?
I think it comes down to your character and whether you want to be. What I loved about academia is this generally that you think about hard problems and you're constantly curious, you're constantly looking for new things. And all the things you're looking for will be challenging in the intellectual way. That was great. What I didn't like was that the feedback loop was super, it was really long. So I think like especially that happened with one of my longest papers I have written. So I have written a paper with two of my colleagues, which was something like 70 pages of like pure mathematics, like really hard computations in like algebraic geometry. We have been writing this paper for like 2 years, and then once we put that paper out, there was nobody who contacted us for the next half a year. And that was super crushing, because I felt like, hey, we did this super paper and I need some feedback on that. But in the end, we got feedback on that, and there are people citing this paper even right now. So that was great, but generally that was like too long of the feedback loop, and I wanted to have something where I have more impact on the world much quicker and have these quicker iterations. But of course, I also wanted to have intellectually challenging things. And fortunately, doing like AI businesses or being in the business where you work with different research teams can definitely give you that. So that's probably the best thing. So if you're thinking about like, you can have basically also academic life in a companies, especially like in a computer science, it's standard. You go to, after doing PhD, you can go to Google or Facebook and work on different research stuff as well, because they're doing incredible stuff. It's probably less so when you are not in computer science. So especially in pure mathematics, it's not the case. But for example, in biology, again, there are so many big pharma companies that doing research that you probably can find something interesting for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also probably the sort of ladder is differently shaped. So in academia, as also in the larger corporations, sometimes it's the years of experience that only tend to matter. And I think when approaching venture capital, sometimes it's the younger the innovator is, the better, because if they see the 50-year-old guy, it's like they don't believe he's gonna innovate and change the world. And the young professionals have the advantage, perhaps. So that's probably
yeah. But to be honest, like I should mention that there's a lot of politics in academia as well. So, and there's the saying that the older you are in academia, the more administrative work you have. And that's unfortunately true, because you will be on different commissions for grants, where you will be writing different reviews of papers, grants of other people, you'll be mentoring students, having your own students, teaching, and so on. Even if you're not teaching, there's so many administrative stuff that, sometimes it's really hard to do research. So even if you think about like going into academia for the purely research purposes, it's almost impossible to have purely research job. Like there are only a couple of places on Earth that you're able to do that. But it's super hard.
Yeah. Anyone from the audience, feel free to come and ask a question. If there's none for now, I will ask one more from myself. So an interesting kind of point in your CV is that you are also writing books. So how is it that you also enjoy this different challenge, and perhaps is it this sort of a balance you get from writing? Just if you could elaborate a bit on this activity.
Yeah, sure. So I was reading a lot since childhood. Basically, I was always reading books, and I also started writing pretty early on, like when I was 12 or 13, and I just kept on going. So at some point, I decided that I need to try writing a book, because this is something I just want to get through. And that was more of like the psychological experience, because the first two books were basically me going through my own experiences and thinking about whether I should go back to Poland after being at Oxford, or whether I should go like more international and go to the US and stuff like that. So I started writing my first book when I was at Oxford, actually. And it really helped me putting some things in perspective. And writing was always natural for me, because I always tend to write a lot of articles, or I was running my own journal and so on. So to be honest, I'm super happy that I can do Contentyze right now, because basically what I'm doing at Contentyze is connecting these two worlds, meaning writing on one hand side and mathematics, machine learning on the other.
Yeah, that's cool. Perhaps the Tolkien landscapes at Oxford also made this decision.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from the audience, so let me ask this one. Pharma industry is still using SAS programming. Do you see a shift towards Python occurring in industry soon, or is it that some sectors like this will just resist?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I didn't have that much experience with pharma, and unfortunately, the thing I've seen are mostly using SAS. There's a little bit of Python. I mean, I was with one project when they were actually going through like some documentation, trying to get some insights from different documentations, like tens of thousands of documents. And to some extent, they were open to actually use Python for that. So that was great. So I think they will be opening to that, because, well, you just can't do much using SAS compared to Python and all the machine learning. So I think it's the matter of time. But of course, with some industries, it might take much longer. So for example, maritime is another industry which is super opposed to Python, or actually any kind of digitization. So I know of like, ship logistics and logistics, everything that has to do with ships and transportation on seas, oceans, is super backwards, in a sense that they don't even use SAS. I think they are at the stage of getting used to using Excel. So Python is no go for now.
We have a bit of a different question now, quite private. So Tadeusz is asking, is your company registered in Poland? And if so, is it a member of some cluster? Is it receiving support? Probably also about whether it's public or...
Yeah, sure. I'm super open. No, so actually the company is registered in the UK, in London. I spent the whole last year in London as well. I just came back to Warsaw for the second lockdown. No, the company is entirely owned by me. There's no other cluster or group projects. There is some support because I managed to raise, I haven't mentioned that, I managed to raise a pre-seed round basically in November. So I don't have to bootstrap everything by myself right now. I have Credo Ventures, which are pretty well-known investors from the Czech Republic, and they invested the first amount of money into the company, so I can hire more people along the way. And the goal right now is to actually raise more internationally from basically March, April.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, very open answer. And Tadeusz, thanks for that. All right, we are coming towards the end of our time, but if anyone still has questions in their mind, feel free to ask them. We have just one last minute with Przemek. Tomorrow at OxPolSoc we are also hosting this sort of more social event for the start of another term in the pandemic realm. But yeah, we very much thank you for your time, Przemek. And we hope to stay in touch.
I have one more question.
Okay, yeah.
Do we have time? Yeah. I have one question for Przemek, because I saw Przemek that you have been doing videos on YouTube and you are still doing them. How has it impacted your business and personal life? Do you enjoy it? What are your plans with it?
You mean for the YouTube channel? Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, to be honest, I enjoy it because it's growing, and it also motivates me to put some of my thoughts into perspective. So, and also I like to write down, or in this case, record whatever I learn. So that's the goal with the YouTube channel, basically. And it's nice because I have some people contacted me because they've seen some things on YouTube, or it's definitely helpful. Totally recommend it. I mean, it's probably also good from the marketing perspective because I had when I started Contentyze, I had already some people which could go from my YouTube channel to Contentyze and just register right away and give me some feedback.
Nice.
Thank you.
There are some famous YouTube channels of IT companies. I know of the Code One YouTube channel, which is probably their #1 activity right now.
Yeah.
If you've seen this, but yeah, it's high attention. All right. Yeah. Thanks again for your time. We don't want to stop you right now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch and good luck with all your future endeavors. Let's hope you achieve the sort of the AGI MVP in the next 10 years. So yeah, fingers crossed. And thanks again, and have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. For you and for all the questions, and also all the best for all of you at Oxford right now. Stay healthy.
Yeah, cheers.